Happy Tuesday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in again here for a look at your extended forecast on 13 WMAZ+. Like we do typically each day, let's recap the day before's rainfall totals. And actually, this is the 5-day rainfall totals now that I look at the banner that I did pop up. But we have seen some isolated rainfall amounts over the last 5 days, but even this being the last 5 days, the highest amount that we could find here in Central Georgia was still shy of 2 inches of rain. That was in northern Bleckley County, just to the north of Cochran. Everyone else still hasn't recorded much, maybe only a couple tenths of an inch of rain, or maybe just simply a trace of rain like up here in the downtown Macon area. Rain has been very hard to come by, which was not a bad thing this past weekend, of course, for the 4th of July festivities. Great outdoor weather. It was obviously running a bit warm on the temperature side of things, but we'll take what we can get because we don't get too many dry stretches during the summertime months. But once again, you can see where the bulk of the rainfall fell, and that was down to our south and our southeast. These localized areas were courtesy of some of the outer bands with once tropical storm Chantal, and we'll get a brief check-in with Chantal real quick. Post-tropical Chantal now, so has disorganized from a tropical system. Winds of 25 miles per hour, and I think this is a little bit behind the actual satellite imagery because these remnants do just look like a couple of clusters of showers off to the east in the Atlantic Ocean of areas like Delaware, New Jersey, and the Mid-Atlantic and New England portions of the country. The track has it going up here towards maybe Cape Cod on the areas of coastal Massachusetts and getting over into Rhode Island. But overall, Chantal doesn't have much organization. It may just be some rain for those areas if the satellite imagery is not exactly correct. Moving in northeast at 25 miles per hour, that pressure has increased to 1,011 millibars, so a little bit higher than yesterday. And this last update was as of the 11 p.m. advisory last night. I do believe the advisories have stopped and Chantal is non-existent anymore. So let's go over your hurricane basin name. Chantal claimed that third name on the list. Dexter will be the next named storm if we are to see a potential area of development in the Atlantic Ocean. But just taking a brief look at your tropics outlook, which was updated as of 8 a.m. this morning, there is no activity expected in the next 7 days, and that is mainly because we can see lots of plumes of Saharan dust. Back over here, kind of this light brown, this grayish color behind the banner, and over here in another area of potential development that we have seen more frequently over the last year or two down in the Caribbean Sea and getting over into the Gulf. We see these hints of this light brown color. However, over in the Eastern Pacific, it is still quite active. Not a lot of that dust is spanning over on the other side of Central America, so you can see some pockets of convection where those cloud tops are a little bit more white in color off the southern tip of Mexico. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on the tropics as we head into a more frequent portion of hurricane season, but still not forecasted to get to that peak until we get to September 10th. So we have about 2 months until that point. So we have a lot of intensity in terms of activity on its way over the course of these next 2 months, and really going to start to see an uptick possibly over the next week or two. But right now the Saharan dust is really drying out the atmosphere and it's not allowing for much formation of anything tropical, but we still have some time left to go until those ocean waters do get to their peak temperature. It takes a little bit longer for a big body of water like the Atlantic Ocean to warm up as we get into the summertime months. So many bodies of water like lakes and things that you have been to very frequently as of recently, those water temperatures get warmer a little bit quicker because they're not as deep in nature and they're not as big and they don't have as much surface area. So the sunshine in the early portions of the summer can heat those up a lot quicker than a big body of water like the Atlantic Ocean. But the season will officially end on November 30th, so we still have a couple months to go that we are going to be talking about the tropics. So back here at home in our neck of the woods, there is no shortage of heat this week. Daily shower and storm chances are back into the picture. They have increased starting today, but we're still looking at the end of the work week to really be the time where rain is most frequent in the forecast. But overall, it's just a textbook July week here in Central Georgia. You know it's hot, you know it's humid, you may see a shower or a storm each afternoon, but the likelihood is you probably will dodge most of that rain. So let's take a walk around the quad. Nice and blue skies still settling in across all 4 of our sky cams. Downtown Macon, a little bit hazier, so some thin high-level cloud cover off in the distance, and you can get a better glimpse of that high-level cloud cover down at the Georgia National Fairgrounds, a spot actually where we have a little bit of shade right now, not seeing that sun beaming down onto some of the walkways here at the fairgrounds. But downtown Dublin has its fair share of sunshine, and this dry stretch has kind of done a number on the lawn right here in downtown Dublin. It is not looking as vibrant and as luscious in color as it once was. So probably needing some water or a better irrigation system there in the downtown Dublin corridor. And then getting into Warner Robins, the grass does look a lot better here in northern Houston County, and even a couple of wasp friends flying around the Skycam. Actually, can't tell which one it is. Is it the downtown Macon one? Is it the Warner Robins Skycam? Looks like those are kind of overlapping with each other, but our Skycam sensors, they have a lot of machinery that's wearing at very low frequencies, and sometimes that can attract things in the way of bugs or some critters. Now taking a look at your temperatures, mid to upper 80s mainly across central Georgia. Some areas a little bit cooler down in Eastman and McRae at 82 and 83 degrees, but already popping up some 90s in Milledgeville and up into Eatonton. Eatonton and Putnam County has been one of our warmer temperatures over the last day or two in central Georgia. But now we take it over to the dew points map. And yes, the dark green is still very widespread, but there are pockets of some deep dark green color, and that would be present in areas like Baldwin County, getting over into Wilkinson County, northern Lawrence County, and this sector right here that's on the I-75 south corner, and that does stretch a little bit up there into Macon County. But I did some research, and I did do a little bit of a view of the topography map of central Georgia specifically. I noticed that areas over here where we typically see this shade of dark green, where the humidity and the dew point temperatures are a little bit higher than the rest of central Georgia, this is actually a lower topographical area compared to areas over to the west. So the ground is a little bit higher as you move over towards the west, get over towards Macon, and especially over in Upson County. So the higher you are, you don't have as much moisture content because those lower lying areas are going to be a little bit closer to some more saturated soil in terms of some watersheds, in terms of maybe even some big bodies of water. And this section of central Georgia, this is mainly along the Oconee River, which flows down from Lake Sinclair up in Baldwin County, and Lake Oconee, which is connected to the northern portion of Lake Sinclair. So there's lots of bodies of water and a river that does flow on eastern central Georgia, and this lower ground level does contribute to maybe a little bit more moisture at surface level compared to areas over to the west. I know we have a river that goes through here in Macon, and you'll see a little bit of a patch of some dark green right there. And we do have the Flint that goes across western central Georgia, but this area of the Flint River is a little bit lower compared to the higher terrain up here in Crawford County, Upson County, Lamar, Monroe counties. So that's why you see some of those dew points near that lower lying ground, near some of those bodies of water that are higher than the rest of the bunch. But an 80-degree dew point already in Unadilla, 82-degree dew point in Cordele. I guess we'll take it over to the feels like temperatures. But before we do that, let's take a look at our humidity levels, big scale, taking a look at the state of Georgia as a whole. We still have some patchy areas of light green color farther over to the west, just north of Columbus, and up once you get into the North Georgia mountains, which of course are at the foothills of the Appalachians, which is much higher ground than the rest of the south and the southeast. So that air is always a little bit drier, especially once you get up into western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, but that's not going to really impact our forecast very much. Just take a look at our wind arrows. They're continuing to come in from the west. Portions are flowing in from the southwest. So as long as we get those kind of southerly component to the winds, that's just going to continue to push moisture up into our neck of the woods. If we get that southwesterly breeze, that's more Gulf moisture. If we get more of a southeasterly breeze, that's going to be more so Atlantic moisture. But all that being said, whatever direction it's coming from, it just has to really have that southerly component. So keep that in mind once we go into portions of your forecast later on, Thursday and Friday specifically. It's going to do something in terms of increasing those rain chances. So let's take it to the feels like temperatures, since you definitely need to know them. I just hate giving you the bad news. 103 is what it feels like in Forsyth, 100 in Milledgeville, taking it to a 106 in Gordon already. We are not even at the midday hour. It feels like 100 in Butler, 102 in Unadilla, 101 in Cordele. So a mix of some 90s, whether the low 90s or mid 90s, maybe some upper 90s, but it does look like our fair share of areas are already feeling like the triple digits, and we do see patchy areas of that pink on this map, which does indicate heat indices of 100 or even higher. So hopefully we don't see these values go too much higher throughout the course of today. Looks like we just got another update, so some other areas are joining the 100-degree party right now. But let's talk about the winds before we get into more of that bad news associated with the heat, because we actually have some good news that will follow that bad news. Winds and wind gusts, a steady breeze right now. It would just be blowing that very humid air that you can wear right in your face. So right now, thankfully, we don't see gusty winds whatsoever, and we're not looking at gusty winds in any day of our forecast for the next couple of days. Heat index over the next couple of hours, it is just going to continue to climb. This is for Macon specifically, 2 and 3 p.m. We got our latest update a little bit ago, and it looks like it's fluctuated just a touch. But you do see popping up some mid 100s as we go into the early afternoon. But as we move towards the evening hours, those numbers are down a little bit. I mean, they're still very hot. Don't get me wrong. 101 and 100 are still values that you don't want to be outside for a prolonged period of time in. But it is a good indication that maybe we have at least some shower chances, at least some light rain chances that will bump those numbers down just a touch. Hopefully we can continue to see some heavier rainfall that has more of an influence of cooling some of those values down. Satellite and radar picture just picking up on patchy cloud cover, which we've had present all morning long on this image, but not seeing anything else that's really worth noting. And taking a look at your surface map, there are no big weather features on their way or present here in the near vicinity of the state of Georgia. The two things that we have to talk about is this boundary up to the north. It looks like the western portion of the boundary has actually started forming a warm front, so that's going to lead to some light precipitation chances, more than likely in areas of the eastern Midwest, getting into the Great Lakes portion of the country. But the eastern component of this boundary is fairly stationary right now. This is going to act as kind of an axis for some rain, but you don't need a frontal boundary to necessarily produce rain. But the big thing we look at for to the north and to the northwest is this boundary going to kick into motion and move all the way down here into the south and the southeast. And this boundary has no indication of doing such. If anything, it's going to push back farther up to the north, as you can see the direction of that warm front. Those semicircles, those red semicircles right here, are indicating the direction of movement associated with the warm front. And these warm fronts typically do move up to the north and the northeast. But let's take a look over on the very right side of your screen. You can see the remnants of Chantal. So it looks like it really has moved off the Atlantic coast of the United States. Don't think it's posing any more impacts except for a couple of showers on the outermost edges of whatever is still semi-organized associated with this system. That may clip some portions of the New England section of the country, but I think that's going to be more so associated with this stationary boundary, because you can see it goes behind the banner, and at the very top of your screen it does stretch into states like Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. So that's what's going on. Nothing really affecting our forecast. We are hot, we are humid, and we're going to be locked in that section of air down here in the deep southeast over the next couple of days. So that's going to contribute to our rain chances, whether they're operating off the heat of the day or they could be a little bit more organized than that. Not really seeing too many indications of that. So it just looks like we're hot, we're humid, and that's going to be enough to sprout those everyday rain chances in the afternoon and evening hours. So 95 for a high temperature yesterday on the almanac. We finally got back above average for this time of year, only 2 degrees, but thankfully we still were nowhere near the record of 104 set back in 1990. And believe it or not, we actually recorded some rain yesterday at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. It was very minuscule, but it wasn't getting into a trace amount, which I always tell you is just a few drops of rain. It's not even enough to record 1/100th of an inch. We got 5/100ths of an inch. So yeah, didn't luck out with much, but it did increase that number maybe a little bit. It's probably about on par for each day of the month of July since we started taking records, of course, to have pretty average amounts of rainfall like that, maybe even a little bit higher. So we actually probably did see this number drop. I just can't think of it what it was popping up as yesterday. So your year departure of rain is hovering just under 4 inches of where we should be this time of year. Sunrise yesterday, 6:33, and sunset has not wavered since that 8:46 time. in quite some time. The sunset has remained at the same time, but that sunrise has gotten a little bit later each and every day. Just about 2 weeks ago, it was around 6:20 in the morning when we had our longest day of the year. So today is marked by a better rain chance and even the possibility of a few storms. I know I was saying this yesterday, but the rain chance is a little bit increased from yesterday, about a 20% chance of a shower or a storm compared to a 30% chance throughout today. A high of 95 degrees once again, so that would match what our temperature hit yesterday. So you may be asking, well, Alex, if our high temperature is still the same, why are our feels like numbers already higher and going to be higher for the rest of the afternoon? And that's because we have seen a little bit more of an increase in moisture. It may only be a degree or two on those dew point temperatures, but every degree you start to increase and get closer and closer to that 80-degree dew point temperature mark, it does have an exponential impact on what those feels like temperatures are. Sunrise did get a minute later this morning at 6:34, but note this west-southwesterly breeze. So it's going to kind of vary in direction, going to be kind of in between, coming in from dead west or dead to the southwest, but about 5 to 15 miles per hour throughout today. Some isolated gusts, if you do catch a storm, could be greater than that, but the chance of a storm isn't looking too likely. It's going to be very isolated and very scattered in nature if you do see anything. So let's take it into future view, and already just past lunchtime, we're seeing a good coverage of some scattered showers, but it does look to be mainly scattered showers. A couple of storms could try to form, and with this latest run of future view, it's actually picking up on this cluster right here. Pretty widespread cluster of some thunderstorms that does stretch from our easternmost counties all the way over to the state line of Georgia and South Carolina. Will this pop up at exactly 8 p.m. tonight on your satellite and radar? More than likely not. Future View doesn't do the best job of resolving the exact location of these very summer-like and diurnally and convective showers and thunderstorms that just operate off the heat of the day each and every day. So we don't typically see the most accurate representation on the satellite and radar of what the model run does say, but just know the potential for seeing some heavy showers trying to group together and trying to organize to have some more widespread impacts, whether that's smack dab right here in the middle of central Georgia or that's just outside of our viewing area, but still it doesn't change your forecast. Mainly scattered showers, but the possibility of a few storms are there as well. And then that is very short-lived because we will go into the nighttime hours after that. Temperatures are going to begin their cool down. It is going to be a little bit slower this time of year, but still just every degree you go down, it's going to have a little bit less and a little bit less to work with in terms of some of those storms to really maintain their intensity as they go into that cooler portion of the night. So we go into 9 a.m. tomorrow. A mostly clear start, at least in the way of rain, but still some clouds are hanging on in the picture. And you still can't rule out maybe seeing a sprinkle or a light shower each and every morning, but that chance is not very likely whatsoever, and definitely nothing compared to what's in store every afternoon. 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, scattered showers, even a couple of storms already pretty early in the afternoon hours. We do see a lot of these try to organize into clusters. Some of those could creep into central Georgia, and keep this in mind whenever we talk about the SPC outlook. Just maybe having a little bit more organization, what we call diurnally enhanced, which is just really kind of like super temperatures and super dew points that can produce more widespread impacts associated with some of those heat of the day showers and storms. But some rain wants to linger into the nighttime hours here on Future View. I never really buy this on the model runs just because our temperatures are already going to be getting cooler, and we typically don't see this play out exactly like that as we go into your current satellite and radar picture, which would be around 11 p.m. later on Wednesday night. A dry start to Thursday because once again our temperatures will be cooler at this point of the day. And the reason that I do talk about that is because number one, we talk about this convective aspect of some of these showers and storms. Well, by convective, I just mean warm air rises, cool air sinks. You might remember that from about 6th grade science class. It is quite literally as simple as that. You get that warm surface heating during the day with those warmer temperatures. That's going to lead to rising motion. Well, what is that rising motion going to carry? It's going to carry all that surface humidity, all of those dew point temperatures in the mid to upper 70s, even getting into the 80s in some spots. It's going to continue to lift that moisture up. Once it reaches a certain level of the atmosphere, it's going to cool and start to condense, and that's where clouds start to form. But the more moisture you have, that rising motion is just going to continue to take it higher and higher and higher up in the atmosphere. So some areas that are more humid than others, they have more moisture content at the surface. They are going to have more to work with, so those cloud tops can grow higher in nature. So that's why we see this pop up every single afternoon into the evening hours. And then finally, once those temperatures begin to cool down, it doesn't have as much to contribute to that rising motion each and every day. So we go into Thursday afternoon. Scattered showers, a few storms once again possible, and that could continue into the evening hours. But then after that, we'll get into the night time frame, and that's when temperatures aren't going to be as warm in nature. So we do see activity fizzling out each and every overnight. So let's take it over to your day one storm outlook. We see widespread impacts of a weather system over in the Great Plains area, and we actually see somewhat of a slight risk over to the east here in central Georgia around the Washington, D.C. area, Philadelphia, New York, getting into New Jersey. Those areas probably going to have their fair share of some active weather later this afternoon. Don't exactly know what that's associated with, but I would say that this risk over here is going to be associated with that boundary we were talking about earlier, just due to our north. But no implications here in central Georgia. Still just going to see our run-of-the-mill scattered showers, maybe even a low-end thunderstorm today. However, for the day two outlook, we do find ourselves in a level 1 out of 5 risk. This is just really covering the bases in case one storm is trying to organize and trying to cluster together like we were talking about on Future View, and it just can have some gusty winds, the potential for some hail, but this is actually not going to be a bad thing. The heavier rainfall rates that you do get, that's going to do more in terms of cooling some of those temperatures down. And in turn, it's going to cool the feels like temperatures down once you get to a certain threshold. But of course, we know after a rain shower in the summertime months, it is drastically humid, but at least those temperatures are a lot cooler to where it doesn't feel as bad. Then we go into the day 3 outlook. We have another risk clipping Hancock and Washington counties. Take this with a grain of salt. Just know that each day for the next couple of days, we will have the likelihood of having a strong or having even a severe thunderstorm warning, but that's not uncommon for the summertime months. You have the heat and the humidity we have in place to work with. Then of course that is going to be prime fuel for some scattered showers and even some scattered severe thunderstorms each and every afternoon. But of course we could see an extension of this down into central Georgia. I just think Wednesday and Thursday are the days that maybe some stronger weather is more likely, but it's not bad because those heavy downpours can help cool those temperatures down. But what you need to know specifically for today, and in fact this pool forecast really goes throughout the entirety of your work week, or it goes into your weekend as well. High temperatures somewhere in the low to mid 90s, 95 specifically for today. Of course, the feels like numbers are going to be at 100 or a couple degrees above it. The pool is a great way to combat that heat just when things get a little bit dark or loud off in the distance from a scattered shower or even a storm this afternoon. Make plans to go ahead and head indoors, and then hopefully that rain cooled air will make it a lot more bearable to walk back outside to. So for your next 3 days, Tuesday, we have a 30% chance of a scattered shower or a storm, up to 40% on Wednesday. High temperatures are down a touch into the low 90s. So the better coverage of rain we have, our high temperatures will be a little bit lower, but overall it's still going to be hot each and every day when you factor in that humidity, because there will be an ample window before activity gets fired up each and every afternoon in the way of scattered rain. Then we go up to 60% on Thursday. So notice that trend. Rain chances are increasing as we head into the end of the work week. And I said, remember when we're talking about those winds, that's because we're looking at more of a southwesterly wind to start to make its presence known by the time we go to Thursday and Friday. And that's just going to have a bit of a stronger pull of even some more moisture in the forecast. But before we get there, your afternoon heat indices, honestly, this is probably undershooting it given what we're forecasted for today. 104 for today. I just showed you that heat index map for Macon specifically, and it had 106 between 2 and 3 p.m. later this afternoon. Of course, that's just a model run, and it's just basing it off what our model data is saying. So somewhere in this threshold, whether you're low 100s, you're mid 100s, it hasn't warranted a heat advisory necessarily. I mean, that's when you need more widespread heat index values of 105 or greater, but it's still going to be hot. 102 feels like 102 doesn't feel all that different from feels like 106. So the humidity day by day, you will see it fluctuate a little bit, but overall we're still going to stay in this humid and this very muggy sector of the muggy meter. You will see a slight uptick into Thursday and Friday. And like I said, if we get that southwesterly flow, it's going to give us a bit of a stronger pull for some of that moisture down in the Gulf. But then we could see a drop down into Saturday, a little bit of an uptick into Sunday. Nonetheless, it's still plenty of enough to work with for your daily rain chances each and every afternoon and evening. So we pick it up with the long range models, and you will see the timestamps. Those are going to be more so into the nighttime hours. This isn't the best resolution, so our rain chances typically hover a little bit ahead of what that time frame specifically is. So I think this current image that you see over the state of Georgia would be more so about 4 or 5 in the afternoon compared to 10 p.m. That's when we would see activity start to thin out and fizzle out. But rain chances are still going to be present as we go into Saturday afternoon and evening, maybe a little less compared to Friday itself. I do have a little bit of a downtick in the rain chances Saturday into Sunday because things are more uncertain as we head into the weekend. But overall, it's just really the coverage that we're talking about. I still think scattered showers and even a storm or two will be present both days this weekend, just maybe not quite as widespread as what we're talking for Thursday and Friday specifically. We go into Monday night, still looking like plenty of green and blue shades all around us. Maybe something trying to get going over here off the Atlantic coast of Florida, crossing over the Florida Peninsula. That was definitely far from set in stone, but you could see some areas of slightly more organization, some of those yellows and some of those pinks. We still don't have an area that is outlined for potential development, according to the National Hurricane Center. So that's nothing to worry about as we go into the next couple of days. The biggest thing you'll want to know is you'll probably want the umbrella handy for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But each and every day, please keep that water bottle handy. If you're spending extended periods of time outside, make sure that you're taking breaks in the shade and applying and reapplying that sunscreen. High temperatures will fluctuate day by day. Some of the days that we have better rain chances, they won't get as high in nature. But still, low 90s or mid 90s, you're going to feel pretty close to the 100-degree mark and even a couple degrees above it. But we do see a downtick right now on Saturday and Sunday for those rain chances. That's just mainly because of the uncertainty, not seeing any rhyme or reason for a lot of those rain chances, and it's really going to depend on the moisture content, what direction our winds are coming from. Because if we still have that southwesterly breeze present on Saturday and Sunday, then of course we should see an uptick in those rain chances, just like we have for your Thursday and your Friday. And then as we go into the beginning of next week, maybe slightly more of a pull of some moisture, whether that's something down to the south of us tropical wise, or whether there's still just your run-of-the-mill thunderstorms. We'll continue to fine-tune that forecast as we get closer. The biggest thing I want you to know is you have a greater chance of seeing a shower or even a storm as we head throughout Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But today is a little bit of an uptick from yesterday. Still think it's mainly going to be scattered showers, nothing too heavy, but there will be some pockets of heavier rain out and about on the satellite and radar picture as we head into the afternoon later on today. But it is just going to be downright hot. If you don't get anything in the way of rain, you will find yourself rooting for one of those heavy showers, even if it does bring some gusty winds for a couple of minutes, even if it does bring a couple of rumbles of thunder associated with flashes of lightning. Just head indoors, and then hopefully you'll walk out to much of a less hot atmosphere than what you would be dealing with if it was just sitting sunny all day long. So that's where your forecast stands. A very, very textbook July forecast here in central Georgia. Still no big weather features that look to be impacting us over the next couple of days. It's just going to be rain chances driven by the heat of the day, that convective process we were breaking down. So be sure to combat the heat. Make sure you're taking care of your body, listening to your body along with your furry friends, and hopefully root for a shower. But make sure when thunder roars, go indoors. We'll see you back here at 10:30 for another look at your extended forecast.